Hi, everyone, and welcome to the August 24th.
Oh, wait. Give it a second. Sorry, it's a little bit slow. There we go. 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the water supply update for August 24th, 2023. I'm Shane Walkie, Manager of Utility Services. The Sunshine Coast has been increased to level 5 in the BC drought conditions. As you can see on the map on the right side of the screen, they've upgraded us from 4 from last update 2 weeks ago. That's not a good thing, obviously, and it feels like fall out there. You know, the nights are getting darker earlier and it's quite cool in the evenings, but we still have drought conditions. The weather in the next week keeps changing. Last night I put a slide in here, and then by this morning it changed again. This is the frustration of managing water on the Sunshine Coast. It looks like there's rain, and then they downgrade it. So next week they were calling for 10 mils on Tuesday and 10 mils on Wednesday, and now they've downgraded it, I believe, to 5, and who knows, by this afternoon maybe the rain will be gone. But this is the only rain that we can see in the forecast right now. And it looks like it's heating up again for this weekend. Eastbourne water system is on stage 4, and not too much has changed there since the last update. And as we've noted in the past, residents of the Eastbourne water system are used to conserving water year-round. And we're still working on trying to get more water from well systems on the island there for them. But currently their status is the same as last update. South Pender water system, it's in stage 3 right now, and it seems to be working with the water flows. The usage has dropped, and what we're doing is we're feeding water from Harris Lake down to McNeill Lake. And it's stabilizing the lake somewhat and slowing the drop in the lake. And then the next screen here. This is Harris Lake yesterday. So you can see that there's lots of water in there. We have a permit to reduce the level in this lake quite a bit. And it's just the fact of getting the water out of the lake, down the creek to McNeill. And so yesterday, the crews were up there again, cleaning out more of the channel, and the water's still flowing from Harris Lake down to McNeill Lake, which is helping out. This graph shows the McNeill Lake level drops compared to last year. You can see at the beginning of the season, we dropped quite rapidly down to almost minus 10 inches from beginning of May to beginning of June, and that's when we called stage 2. And then there was a rain event, and then we continued dropping off quite steeply. That's why we called stage 3 in the middle of July. But what's happened is people have responded quite well with their consumptions, and that's helped. And also you can see where the rain and other rain event happened, and we started releasing more water from Harris Lake. So I think with the releasing from Harris Lake, and as we continue on, hopefully the purple line will get closer to the green line, but you can see how different last year was. Last year there was quite a cool spring, and that's why McNeill Lake started dropping later on, like end of July. And that's why there was so much concern at the beginning of this year, because we were, sort of 2 months ahead of schedule with McNeill. But I'm feeling okay about it right now, and we'll have to see in the next couple of weeks what happens. Hopefully there's some rain, and we're continuing with releasing water from Harris Lake. But right now, we're feeling okay about the fact that the lake level is dropping slower, and we're on it. And it's just a lot more management this year. Last year, we didn't have to release from Harris Lake. It was a lot less management. We're spending a lot more time at McNeill and Harris Lake, but that's okay because we're well aware of what the situation is up there. This is what I was talking about the flows from the South Pender treatment plant. The dark blue line is the water that we're withdrawing out of the lake, and the columns, the lighter blue, is what is being used in the distribution system. The difference is there's some processed water that we need to use at the plant, and that's what the dark blue line is. But you can see 1,800 is the permit. There's a number of times we exceeded it in late July, and that's part of the reasons why we had to call the stages to reduce that flow. But you can see that it has helped. We're continuously reducing over the last couple months here, and that's good. And it's being managed appropriately, I believe, and we'll continue on. And as I said, we'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Chapman Lake, coming down to the Chapman Lake system, the lake is continuing to drop at 1 or 2% a day. And as it gets further down into the lake, it seems to speed up because there's less surface water. So the water that we're supplying from Church Road and Grey Creek and Chester Well is really helping. And Grey Creek's being a real trooper, continuously providing us a good volume of water. And Church Road, we're working our best to get as much out of there as we can. But without significant rain in the forecast, we will be moving to stage 4 in early September. We need it to rain that rain I was showing earlier. We need it to rain and rain quite a bit to stop us from going to stage 4. So conservation efforts need to continue, and I believe that's happening in the Chapman water system as well. People are reducing their water use. Here's a graph that we've seen a few times now, and last update, I wanted the pink line to cross over the red line, and it has done that. So the red line, of course, is last year. The pink line is this year. And so what that means is we're actually in a better place than we were this time last year. So I still think that pink line is going to be a bit flatter, and we're going to continue to move away from the red line on the right side of the line. And that's good. Every bit it moves further away from the red line means we're better than last year. A new line on this graph this week is the yellow line. There's been some questions about 2015 because a lot of people remember that 2015, it was an early hot spring and what happened, and you can see what was happening then, how it dropped so rapidly. And then end of August, it rained like crazy. It just filled the lake back up. And that would be great if that happened again any day now and filled the lake back up. But that's also the year that we started designing siphons, and we almost installed the siphons in that year, and we ended up installing them in 2017. Here's the pie chart for the Chapman water system supply sources for the last week. Church Road has been online, and we're producing about 2,300 cubic meters a day. And Grey Creek, like I said, is doing really well with 2,600 cubic meters a day. And Chapman Treatment Plant is producing about 62% of the total consumption over the last week, where last update, if you remember, it was 79%. So bringing Church Road back online after some maintenance has, as you can see, we're producing 15% of the water in our system from Church Road. Church Road, we're trying to keep ramping up the volume that we get out of the wells, and it's challenging managing the system with multiple sources, and the operators are getting better at it, and we're improving our use of that water. Edwards Lake is an additional water supply that we have up in part of the tetrahedron, and there's 2 lakes, Chapman and Edwards. And we typically use it in stage 3 or stage 4, the end of stage 3 or early stage 4. And it's similar to Chapman Lake, where it has a valve about 3 meters down into the lake. And that's how we release the water from Edwards Lake, but also Chapman Lake. And we can do that remotely from a computer down here at the offices, or it's called a SCADA system. Last year, we installed a siphon at Edwards, so we have that tool available to us. So this is Chapman Lake yesterday, and if you look at the siphon at the end here on the very left where it enters the lake, remember that because there's another picture coming up. So this is August 23rd, 2023, and the lake's getting down to the point that once it gets down about another half a meter or so, 3/4 of a meter, we start losing control out of the valve because it starts, sucking in air. And that's when we start transitioning to using Edwards and the siphons out of Chapman Lake. This overview shows where the two lakes are in relation to our water treatment plant. So Chapman Lake is up on the top right and Edwards is up on the top left. And when we release water from Edwards Lake, you can see it goes down its own little channel, but then ties into Chapman Creek and flows all the way down to the Chapman water treatment plant. And that's also where the treatment plant is where we need to ensure that we're releasing 200 liters a second for environmental flow needs and the fish. And the remaining water that we release from the lakes is used at the water treatment plant. So this is how we're managing the lake levels. It shows the level of Chapman in the blue and level in Edwards in 2022. So what I wanted to do is talk about how we manage the two sources, the two lakes for the Chapman water system. And so I thought I'd use 2022 as an example because that we're mirroring that this year with the advantage of having Church Road. And that's, again, that pink line back in the previous graph, that's an indication that Church Road is helping out, and Grey Creek, to move that, to flatten that line a little bit. But if we talk about 2022, and everybody's aware of how long the drought was last year, and we were able to maintain water into the water system, so I thought we'd talk about 2022. So you can see that this is how the lakes were managed last year. We started Chapman earlier, as we normally do, the dark blue line, it dropped off, and then later on in the year, when we got into stage 3, 4, we started using water from Edwards, and it managed to provide our water right through to the very end. So in both lakes, we have 2 permits. One is like our regular storage permit, and that's about the top 3 meters of the lake. And then this, from 3 meters to 6 meters below the surface of the lake, we have emergency storage permits, which are the siphons. And up until last year, we only had one at Chapman Lake, but we now currently have one at each of the lakes. At Edwards and Chapman, they're very similar, with the top 3 meters being a normal permit, and the 3 meters below that is a siphon and an emergency permit. So that being said, we can only use the siphons during stage 4. So this is Chapman Lake last year in August 26, 2022. So remember the picture we had earlier, you can see it's quite similar level at the same time last year. It's about half a meter higher this year. And this is Chapman Lake on October 6th. So this is when we've been using the siphons quite a bit. So what we do is we use the lake storage, the normal permit at Chapman, until it's about finished, like the last picture I just showed you. And then we start using Edwards Lake regular permit, the top 3 meters, while we're using the siphons in Chapman. And so we continue to drop Chapman down while we're lowering the top 3 meters of Edwards Lake. And we do that because there's automated valves in the top 3 meters, and we always want to have a lake operating with an automated valve while we're using another siphon. It's preferable to not have 2 siphons on at the same time. But this is what happened to Edwards Lake. We started using Edwards Lake last year, and on October 6th, it had already dropped down. But this is where we're still regulating water out of the valve, out of Edwards Lake, but we're also using Chapman siphon. And then later on in the year, the channel in Edwards Lake dried out. And this is at the very end of the year when we were using both siphons from Edwards and from Chapman. And again, that's preferable if we had a valve that we could use, but last year, this is what we got to. We were using both siphons. So this is how we're hoping to manage the water up at the 2 lakes this year to enable us to extend water right through the fall. And of course, one picture here that was really disappointing last year, some precipitation was coming and it fell as rain at the lakes, and then we had to work on keeping water flowing with frozen conditions up at the end of the year. That was the problem there. So there's an explanation of how we manage the water sources. We use the top 3 meters at Chapman, and then we move over to Edwards. We start using the top 3 meters there while using the siphons at Chapman. And then once we use the top 3 at Edwards, we start that siphon and we run both siphons. The interesting fact, though, is that the Chapman siphons, when we're running them, is basically for the environmental flow needs. We flow 200 liters a second for the fish, as I said previous, and we can flow about 260 out of Chapman Lake with the siphons. So basically all the water that's coming out of Chapman Lake is for the environmental flow needs. Talking about the environmental flow needs in Chapman Creek, we're still working with the province. We've provided more information. Yesterday, we updated them. There's been comments going back and forth. I was hoping to have this approval by now, but we haven't got it yet. And it's no lack of trying. We're all working together, the province and the SCRD. And hopefully there'll be more of an update next update, water update. I've touched on this already. Church Road is producing about 2,600 cubic meters a day. Yeah, that's not maximum flow, but as I said, the operators are trying to manage this as well as they can with managing the creek flows, managing the water into the Chapman Water Treatment Plant, managing Church Road's flow, Chasta Road, and Great Creek. So it's like a good game of juggling, and I think they're doing a good job. And we're slowly increasing the flow out of Church Road. We're continuing with water conservation. We've hosted a water update with businesses and Scredo, and you can see the presentation on our website. We're continuing to send people water shutoff notices that have leaks. If you have a leak on your water system, please fix it. We don't want to send you a letter. We just want the leaks fixed. We're communicating with residential water meters. Commercial and residential leak letters will be sent out soon. And if you want to report an infraction, there's a form online that you can fill out, and our staff will do something about it. So people have been signing up for water use online. That's another thing. You should go on and take a look and see if you can sign up to see how much water you're using if you have a water meter. And here's a note that says hand watering is a much more efficient way of watering plants than using a sprinkler, somebody said. There's other comments on here. And it's interesting, I was going to put a personal picture on here the other day. I was hand watering my banana plant. I saw a Pacific green tree frog, and I wouldn't have seen that if I used my sprinkler, and it was pretty neat. And I took a few pictures of it, and I resisted putting it in the presentation. But sign up. So if you've gone to our website, you'll see this picture here. We're dropping continuously in Chapman Lake. And if you want more information, you can visit our website. And my next presentation will be on September the 14th, 2023. Is that the right date? Yeah, something like that, 2 Thursdays from now. And so this picture here with the 43%, that's a percent going down to where we're thinking that it's going to be somewhere near where we're calling stage 4. Now it might not be at 0 when we call stage 4. It might be at 10 or 20. It really depends on a lot of factors. But this is a good indication of where we're dropping quickly. And if we keep dropping at 2% for the next 10 days, we'll be down to like 23% or something like that in Chapman. And that's probably the time that we'll be transitioning over to Edwards and stage 4. That's the presentation for today. Thank you. And I look forward to talking at the next Water Summit.